The widower CEO falls in love with his child's nanny. Chapter 1: A job she desperately needed. The rain had been falling since dawn. Heavy gray clouds covered the city, turning the afternoon sky into a gloomy blanket of darkness. Cars moved slowly through the wet streets, their headlights reflecting on the shiny pavement. Sophia Walker stood at a crowded bus stop, clutching a worn leather folder tightly against her chest. Inside the folder were copies of her resume, certificates, recommendation letters, and every document she hoped would convince someone to give her a chance. A cold wind blew against her face. She pulled her coat tighter around herself. Her shoes were soaked from walking through puddles, but she barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, specifically on the unpaid bills sitting on the small kitchen table inside her apartment. The rent was overdue. The electricity bill was due in 3 days. And her younger brother's university tuition payment deadline was only weeks away. Sophia closed her eyes briefly. Life had become a constant battle. 3 years earlier, she had lost her father after a sudden heart attack. 2 years later, cancer had taken her mother. The losses had shattered her world. She had barely finished mourning one parent before losing the other. Since then, she had become everything at once: a sister, provider, a caregiver, a protector. At 26 years old, she carried responsibilities that felt much heavier than her age. Many nights she lay awake wondering how much longer she could keep everything together. But every morning she got up and tried again, because Daniel depended on her. Her younger brother was smart, brilliant actually. He had earned admission into one of the country's best universities. Their parents had always dreamed of seeing him graduate. Sophia refused to let that dream die, even if it meant sacrificing her own dreams. Her phone buzzed. She immediately pulled it out. A message from Daniel appeared. "Good luck today, sis. You've got this." Sophia smiled despite everything. Then another message appeared. "And don't worry about my tuition. We'll figure something out." Her eyes stung slightly. Daniel always tried to sound strong, but she knew he was worried too. She typed quickly, "Don't worry. Everything will be fine." She hit send, even though she wasn't sure it was true. A few minutes later, a bus arrived. Sophia climbed aboard. The ride took nearly 40 minutes. The entire journey, she kept staring at the address written on a piece of paper. Kingston Estate, the residence of Alexander Kingston, one of the most successful CEOs in the country. Everyone knew his name. His company owned hotels, real estate developments, technology firms, and countless other businesses. He was worth hundreds of millions. Some magazines called him a business genius. Others called him ruthless. No one seemed to know much about his private life, except for one tragic fact. His wife had died 2 years ago. The news had dominated headlines for weeks. Since then, Alexander Kingston had become even more withdrawn from public life. According to the agency that arranged the interview, he was looking for a nanny for his 7-year-old daughter. Sophia wasn't sure why she had been selected for an interview. There were probably hundreds of applicants. More experienced applicants, better qualified applicants, applicants with impressive backgrounds. But somehow she had received a call, and this opportunity felt like her last hope. The salary alone could solve nearly all her financial problems. The bus finally stopped. Sophia stepped outside. For a moment, she thought she had the wrong address. The estate before her looked unbelievable. Massive iron gates stretched across an enormous property. Beyond them stood a mansion so large it resembled a luxury resort. Perfectly trimmed hedges lined the driveway. Elegant fountains decorated the landscape. Expensive vehicles sat parked near the entrance. Everything looked flawless. Sophia suddenly became painfully aware of her simple coat, her inexpensive shoes, her old folder. She looked completely out of place. Her confidence began slipping away. What was she doing here? People like Alexander Kingston lived in a different world, a world she could barely imagine. Before she could lose her nerve, she walked toward the security gate. A guard greeted her professionally. Name? Sophia Walker. The guard checked a list, then nodded. "Mr. Kingston is expecting you." A few moments later, The gates opened. Sophia swallowed nervously and entered. The driveway seemed endless. As she approached the mansion, her heartbeat grew faster. Everything about this place felt intimidating. She reached the front entrance. The enormous wooden doors opened before she could knock. A woman in a black uniform smiled politely. "You must be Miss Walker." "Yes." "Please come in." Sophia stepped inside. The sight nearly stole her breath. The entrance hall was breathtaking. Marble floors gleamed beneath sparkling chandeliers. Beautiful paintings decorated the walls. A grand staircase curved elegantly toward the upper level. The entire place felt more like a luxury hotel than a family home. Yet despite the beauty, something felt strange. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Almost empty. Like a place that had forgotten how to be happy. The housekeeper led Sophia into a sitting room. "Please wait here." Sophia nodded. After the woman left, she sat carefully on the edge of a chair. Her palms felt sweaty. She wiped them discreetly against her skirt. Minutes passed. The silence became almost unbearable. Then the door opened. Sophia immediately stood. And for a brief moment, she forgot how to breathe. Alexander Kingston entered the room. He was even more striking than the photographs online. Tall, broad-shouldered, perfectly dressed in a dark suit. His face was handsome but serious. Very serious. The kind of face that rarely smiled. His eyes immediately met hers. Sharp gray eyes that seemed capable of reading every thought hidden behind a person's expression. Sophia suddenly understood why people found him intimidating. This was a man used to being in control. A man whose decisions affected thousands of employees. A man who had built an empire. Alexander sat across from her. Without smiling. Without small talk. Without wasting time. "Miss Walker." "Mr. Kingston." He glanced briefly at her resume. "You previously worked as a childcare assistant." "Yes." "For how long?" "For years." He nodded slightly. "Why did you leave?" Sophia hesitated, then answered honestly. "My mother became ill." His eyes lifted. She continued, "I left to take care of her." For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not warmth, not sympathy, but understanding. Just for a moment. Then it disappeared. Alexander looked back at the papers. "Do you have children?" "No." "Why apply for this position?" The question caught her off guard. Why apply for this position? The question caught her off guard. She could have given a rehearsed answer. But something told her honesty would work better. "I enjoy helping children." His face remained unreadable. Sophia continued, "And I know what it's like to lose someone you love." Silence filled the room. Alexander's gaze slowly returned to her. For a brief second, she wondered if she had said something wrong. Then he leaned back slightly. "Tell me something, Miss Walker." "Yes? Why should I hire you?" Sophia took a breath. This was the moment that could change everything. Or destroy everything. "I can't promise perfection." Alexander listened quietly. "But I can promise dedication." She held his gaze. "I know your daughter has been through something difficult." His expression hardened slightly. "But I won't try to replace her mother." Sophia spoke gently. "I won't force her to trust me." She paused. "I'll simply be there whenever she needs someone." For the first time during the interview, Alexander seemed genuinely interested. Then suddenly, the door burst open. A small girl ran into the room. "No." Everyone turned. The child stood in the doorway. Beautiful brown hair, large expressive eyes, and an unmistakable look of frustration. Sophia immediately recognized her. "Emily Kingston." Alexander sighed softly. "Emily." The little girl pointed directly at Sophia. "No, Nanny." Alexander rubbed his forehead. "Emily. I don't want another nanny." The child's voice trembled. "I hate nannies." Sophia's heart tightened. The pain behind those words was obvious. This wasn't simple stubbornness. This was grief. Raw grief. The kind adults struggled with. The kind children barely understood. Emily crossed her arms. Tears began filling her eyes. "I want mommy." The room became silent. Sophia saw Alexander freeze. Only briefly, but she noticed. Pain flashed across his face before he quickly hid it. The little girl's voice cracked. I want mommy back. Sophia felt tears threatening her own eyes. No child should have to carry that kind of heartbreak. Emily looked away, trying to hide her tears, trying to act brave. Sophia recognized that too, because she had done the same thing after losing her parents. Without thinking, she slowly crouched down until she was at Emily's eye level. The little girl immediately frowned. What? Sophia smiled softly. Your dress is beautiful. Emily blinked. The response clearly wasn't what she expected. What? Your dress. Sophia pointed gently. I like it. The little girl glanced down. The dress was pink, decorated with tiny flowers. My mommy bought it. Sophia nodded. She had good taste. Emily stared at her, trying to decide whether she trusted her. Sophia continued. Pink is my favorite color too. Emily's eyebrows lifted. Really? Really? The little girl's anger weakened slightly. For the first time since entering the room, curiosity replaced hostility. Sophia smiled. Do you like drawing? Emily nodded cautiously. I love drawing. Sophia's smile widened. So do I. Emily looked surprised. You draw? I do. What do you draw? Mostly terrible pictures. A tiny laugh escaped the child before she could stop herself. Alexander noticed. The housekeeper standing outside noticed. Everyone noticed, because that laugh was rare. Very rare. Sophia saw the surprise on Emily's face, as though she had forgotten what laughing felt like. The little girl took a small step forward. Really terrible? Sophia nodded dramatically. The worst. Emily giggled again. A genuine giggle this time. The room changed instantly. The tension faded. The sadness lifted slightly. Not completely, but enough. Alexander watched carefully. His daughter had rejected 7 nannies. 7. Some lasted hours. Others lasted minutes. Yet somehow this stranger had accomplished more in 2 minutes than most people had managed in months. Emily turned toward her father. Daddy? Yes? Can she stay? Alexander looked at Sophia, then at Emily, then back at Sophia. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Alexander stood. His voice remained calm. Miss Walker. Sophia straightened nervously. Yes? You're hired. The words hit her like a wave. For a second, she thought she had imagined them. Hired? Alexander nodded. The reality began sinking in. She got the job. The job. The opportunity she desperately needed. Relief flooded through her chest so suddenly that she almost cried. She thought about Daniel, the rent, the bills, the stress that had followed her for months. For the first time in a long time, hope appeared. Real hope. Emily smiled proudly. Picked her. Alexander almost smiled. Almost. Apparently you did. Sophia looked at the little girl. Then at Alexander. Thank you. Alexander gave a short nod. But something in his expression had changed. Because as he watched Sophia interacting with Emily, he felt something unexpected. Not attraction. Not yet. Just curiosity. For the first time in years, someone had entered this house and brought a small spark of life with them. And somehow, the mansion didn't feel quite as empty anymore. As the rain continued falling outside, none of them realized that this simple meeting was about to change all their lives forever. End of chapter 1. If you love our story, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories and as we continue the chapter 2. And don't forget that we love you so much. Chapter 2, Breaking Through the Walls. The first morning Sophia officially started working at the Kingston estate. She arrived nearly an hour early. She stood outside the massive gates for a moment, staring at the mansion that now felt slightly less intimidating than it had the day before. Slightly, but not much. The reality of her new job was finally sinking in. She was now employed by one of the wealthiest men in the country. More importantly, she was responsible for helping a little girl whose heart had been shattered by grief. Sophia knew it wouldn't be easy. The brief connection she had formed with Emily during the interview was only the beginning. Trust wasn't built in a single conversation. It was built slowly, patiently, day by day. And grief had a way of building walls around people, especially children. As the gates opened, Sophia took a deep breath and walked inside. The morning air felt cool and fresh. Birds chirped softly from the beautifully landscaped gardens. Everything looked peaceful. Yet beneath the beauty of the estate, Sophia could still sense the sadness that lingered inside the home. A sadness that had settled there long ago. A sadness nobody seemed able to remove. When she entered the mansion, one of the housekeepers greeted her warmly. "Good morning, Miss Walker." "Good morning." The woman smiled. "Emily has been asking whether you're coming back." Sophia blinked. "She has?" The housekeeper nodded. "Since 6 o'clock." Sophia couldn't help smiling. That was a good sign. A very good sign. The housekeeper lowered her voice. "You're the first nanny she's ever asked about." Sophia felt both encouraged and nervous. The responsibility suddenly felt even greater. Before she could respond, a small voice echoed from upstairs. "Sophia." A few seconds later, Emily appeared at the top of the staircase. The little girl practically flew down the steps. "You're here." Sophia laughed. "I said I would be." Emily stopped in front of her. For a moment, she looked almost embarrassed by her excitement. Then she quickly crossed her arms. "I wasn't waiting." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "No?" Emily shook her head. "Not at all." Sophia smiled knowingly. "Of course not." The little girl narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Then a grin appeared on her face. The smile transformed her entire expression. For a brief moment, Sophia caught a glimpse of the happy child Emily might have been before tragedy entered her life. It was a beautiful sight, and a heartbreaking one, because it showed just how much had been lost. The first few days went surprisingly well. At least during the daytime, Sophia and Emily spent hours together. They painted pictures, read storybooks, played board games, walked through the gardens, and even baked cookies in the kitchen. The staff watched with amazement. Emily was talking more, laughing more, smiling more. She still had moments of sadness, moments when her grief surfaced unexpectedly. But she seemed happier than she had been in a very long time. Yet as evening approached each day, everything changed. The smiles disappeared, the laughter faded, and the walls around Emily's heart returned. One night, shortly after dinner, Sophia heard crying coming from upstairs. She immediately recognized the voice. "Emily." Sophia climbed the staircase and followed the sound to the little girl's bedroom. The door was slightly open. Inside, Emily sat curled beneath her blankets. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her small shoulders shook with sobs. Sophia's heart broke instantly. She entered quietly. "Emily?" The little girl looked up. Her face crumpled. "I want Mommy." Sophia sat beside her bed. For a moment, neither spoke. Some people rush to offer solutions when faced with grief. They said things like, "Everything will be okay. Don't cry. Be strong." But Sophia knew grief didn't work that way. Pain needed room to exist. So instead of trying to fix it, she simply stayed. After several moments, Emily whispered, "I dreamed about her." Sophia listened carefully. The little girl wiped her eyes. "In my dream, she was here." Her voice trembled. "We were drawing together." More tears appeared. Then I woke up. The silence that followed felt heavy. Sophia gently reached for Emily's hand. "What was she like?" Emily blinked. "What? Your mommy?" The little girl looked surprised. Most adults avoided talking about her mother, as though mentioning her would somehow make the pain worse. But Sophia understood something important. People didn't stop loving someone just because they died. And pretending they never existed didn't help. It only made the loneliness deeper. A small smile appeared on Emily's face. She was pretty. I'm sure she was. And she smelled like flowers. Sophia smiled. "Flowers?" Emily nodded. "Always." The little girl looked toward a framed photograph on her bedside table. Sophia followed her gaze. The woman in the picture was beautiful. Warm eyes, a kind smile. She looked like someone who filled every room with light. Emily stared at the photograph. "I miss her." Sophia squeezed her hand gently. "I know." The little girl's eyes filled again. "You do?" Sophia looked down briefly, then nodded. "I miss my mother too." Emily sat up slightly. You do? Sophia smiled sadly. Every day. The room became quiet. For the first time, Emily wasn't speaking to someone who only understood grief from the outside. She was speaking to someone who had lived it, someone who knew what it felt like to lose a parent, someone who understood the empty chair at dinner, the birthdays that hurt, the memories that arrived unexpectedly, the feeling that a piece of your heart was missing. Emily studied her carefully. Does it ever stop hurting? The question pierced Sophia's heart, because it was the same question she had asked herself after losing her parents. She thought carefully before answering. No. Emily's face fell. Sophia quickly continued. But it changes. The little girl listened. At first, the pain feels so big that it's all you can see. Sophia's voice remained soft. Then little by little, life grows around it. Emily frowned slightly. Sophia searched for the right words. You never stop loving them. The little girl nodded. You never stop missing them. Another nod. But eventually you start remembering the good things more than the sad things. Emily thought about that. For several moments, neither spoke. Then the little girl slowly moved closer. A second later, she wrapped her arms around Sophia. Sophia immediately hugged her back. The child held on tightly, as though she had finally found someone who truly understood. Someone safe. Someone who wouldn't tell her to stop feeling sad. Someone who wouldn't try to erase her mother's memory. Someone who simply stayed. From the hallway outside, Alexander stood silently. He hadn't meant to overhear the conversation. He had been walking past Emily's room when he heard voices. Then he stopped and listened. Now he remained motionless, watching. The sight before him stirred emotions he hadn't felt in years. Emily looked peaceful in Sophia's arms. Safe, comforted, understood. After his wife's death, Alexander had thrown himself into work. It had seemed easier. Work was predictable. Work made sense. Business problems could be solved. Financial challenges could be overcome. Competitors could be defeated. But grief was different. No amount of money could fix it. No amount of intelligence could defeat it. And despite all his resources, he had never found a way to heal his daughter's broken heart. Yet somehow, Sophia was succeeding where everyone else had failed. Not because she had special training. Not because she followed some expert parenting method. But because she genuinely cared. Alexander continued watching quietly. Then he saw something that nearly stopped his heart. Emily smiled. A real smile. Not forced. Not brief. A genuine smile. His chest tightened unexpectedly, because he couldn't remember the last time he'd seen one. Slowly, he turned away and walked down the hallway. But Sophia remained in his thoughts. The following weeks brought noticeable changes. Emily became increasingly attached to Sophia. Every morning she looked forward to seeing her. Every evening she wanted one more story, one more game, one more conversation. For the first time in years, the mansion felt less like a museum of memories and more like a home. Even the staff noticed. The atmosphere had changed. Laughter occasionally echoed through the halls. The sound seemed unfamiliar, but welcome. One afternoon Sophia and Emily sat beneath a large tree in the garden. Sheets of paper covered the grass around them. Colored pencils were scattered everywhere. Emily concentrated intensely on her drawing. Sophia peeked over. What are you making? Emily immediately covered the page. No looking. Sophia laughed. Why not? Because it's a surprise. Sophia raised her hands dramatically. I surrender. A few minutes later, Emily proudly held up the finished drawing. Sophia's smile instantly softened. The picture showed 3 people standing together. One was Emily, one was Alexander, and one was Sophia. Above them, a bright sun filled the sky. Sophia swallowed. It's beautiful. Emily beamed. Really? Really? The little girl looked pleased. Then she pointed at the drawing. That's you. Sophia nodded. I figured. And that's Daddy. Sophia nodded again. Emily's expression softened. And that's me. The 3 figures stood side by side. Together. Like a family. The realization touched Sophia more deeply than she expected. Before she could respond, Emily suddenly asked, Do you think Mommy would like you? Sophia froze. The question caught her completely off guard. She looked carefully at the little girl. Emily's eyes held genuine curiosity. Not jealousy, not sadness, just curiosity. Sophia smiled gently. I hope so. Emily studied the drawing, then nodded. I think she would. Tears threatened Sophia's eyes. She quickly blinked them away, because in that moment, she realized something important. The walls around Emily's heart weren't disappearing all at once. They were crumbling little by little, brick by brick. And behind those walls was a child who desperately wanted to love and be loved again. A child learning how to trust. A child learning how to heal. And although the journey was far from over, Sophia knew they were moving in the right direction. Neither of them realized that these small moments would soon begin changing someone else as well. A widower who had convinced himself that his heart was closed forever. A man who watched from a distance. A man who told himself he felt only gratitude. A man who had not yet realized that every day Sophia spent in his home was slowly breaking down the walls around his own heart. End of chapter 2. Please don't forget subscribe to our channel as well. Proceed to chapter 3. Chapter 3, the cold CEO begins to change. Months passed. The mansion changed. Laughter returned. Emily smiled more. The servants smiled more. Even Alexander began changing. One evening he arrived home late from work. Exhausted. The company was facing a major crisis. He expected silence. Instead, he found Sophia and Emily baking cookies in the kitchen. Flour covered both their faces. Emily laughed loudly. Daddy! Sophia burned the first batch. Sophia laughed. It was an accident. For a moment, Alexander forgot all his worries. He laughed too. The room became quiet. Everyone stared. Alexander never laughed. Ever. Sophia smiled. And Alexander felt something unfamiliar in his chest. A warmth. A feeling he thought had died with his wife. Love. The realization frightened him. He immediately walked away. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Chapter 4, Jealous Hearts. Sophia noticed changes too. Alexander had become kinder, more attentive. Sometimes she caught him staring. Sometimes their eyes met longer than they should. And every time her heart raced. One afternoon, a beautiful woman arrived at the mansion. Victoria Hart, a wealthy socialite, and Alexander's former fiancée before he married his late wife. Victoria immediately noticed Sophia. And who is she? The nanny, Alexander replied. Victoria smirked. A nanny? The way she said it made Sophia uncomfortable. Over the next few weeks, Victoria made her intentions clear. She wanted Alexander back. But Emily hated her. One evening Victoria tried to force a hug. Emily pulled away. I want Sophia. Victoria's face darkened. The jealousy became obvious. She saw what everyone else could see. Alexander's heart was no longer available. It belonged to someone else. Chapter 5. The secret they couldn't hide. One stormy night, Emily became seriously ill. Her fever climbed dangerously high. Alexander panicked. Sophia stayed awake all night caring for her, holding cold towels against her forehead, whispering comforting words. By morning, Emily's fever finally broke. Alexander looked at Sophia. His eyes were filled with gratitude. You stayed all night. Sophia smiled tiredly. She's family. Family. The word hit him hard. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. Their eyes locked. Neither spoke. Neither moved away. The tension was undeniable. Then Emily suddenly opened her eyes. She grinned weakly. You should just kiss already. Sophia nearly choked. Alexander laughed. Emily smiled proudly. What? Everybody knows. Chapter 6, The Confession. Days later, Alexander could no longer hide his feelings. He invited Sophia to dinner. Just the two of them. The city's most elegant restaurant. Sophia felt nervous. Alexander looked nervous too. Neither knew where to start. Finally, Alexander spoke. Sophia. She looked up. You changed our lives. Her heart raced. You brought happiness back into this house. His voice softened. You brought happiness back to me. Tears filled Sophia's eyes. Alexander took her hand. I tried to fight it. She held her breath. But I'm in love with you. The world seemed to stop. Sophia had dreamed of hearing those words. Yet she never expected them. I love you too. Alexander smiled. The first genuine smile she had ever seen from him. Then he kissed her. And neither wanted the moment to end. Chapter 7: A New Beginning. 6 months later, the mansion looked completely different. Felt alive again. Filled with joy. Filled with hope. Filled with love. One sunny afternoon, Alexander gathered everyone in the garden. Emily bounced excitedly. Sophia looked confused. Alexander suddenly dropped to one knee. Gasps echoed around them. Sophia covered her mouth. Alexander opened a small velvet box. Inside sparkled a breathtaking diamond ring. Sophia Walker. Tears streamed down her face. You saved my daughter. His voice trembled. You saved me. Emily squealed excitedly. Alexander smiled. Will you marry me? Sophia nodded through tears. Yes. Emily screamed louder than everyone else. Yay! She's finally my mom. Laughter filled the garden. Alexander slipped the ring onto Sophia's finger. Then he pulled her into his arms. For the first time since losing his wife, his heart felt whole again. Not because the past had been forgotten, but because love had found its way back. And this time, it arrived through the woman who had walked into their lives as a nanny and became the family they never knew they needed. The end. Red Heart.